All right, well, I guess we do have a quorum here. So we shall start. Let's start again. As a preliminary matter, this is Irfan Nasrallah, Select Board Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Amy Ritterbush. Brendan Tedstone.
Tedstone, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere.
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel Kramer.
Muriel Kramer's here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Norman Kamalu.
Present.
Elaine Lazarus.
Yes.
Good evening. This is an open meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board. Is being conducted remotely pursuant to Section 20 of Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. For this meeting, the Select Board is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also be broadcast by HCAM through one or many of its channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda, unless I note otherwise. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will invite board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in dialogue with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their name and address only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Before we begin, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public forum. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak? If so, please use the raise hand feature of Zoom, and when called on, identify yourself by name and address first. I do not see any hands raised. Unless I am missing something, I think we can move on.
Moving on.
All right, so the 2022 Boston Marathon Invitational Entry Random Distribution. The Select Board will hold a public random distribution of invitational entries to qualified applicants for the 2022 Boston Marathon. The board thanks the Boston Athletic Association for providing the entries to the community, and we are very pleased with this partnership. Mr. Kamalu.
Good evening to the board members as well as the community. I really am excited whenever we get to this topic, namely distributing the invitational entries to local organizations. And here's why. There are many reasons why Hopkinton is a great community. And one of those reasons is the work that is done by the local civic organizations. In its with infinite wisdom, the select board several years back decided to put together a policy that lays out the framework for doing this work. In that policy, it is stated that once every year at the appropriate time, the select board defines the process for distributing the numbers. The intent is to have a process that is fair, that is transparent, and that is advantageous to local organizations. This year, and this was done last year in November, the framework that was set identified two options and possibilities for distributing the numbers. One was identifying local town departments that provide a direct service to holding and starting the Boston Marathon here in Hopkinton. The second component to that was identifying organizations undertaking activities, public service activities within the town of Hopkinton. It was within the context of the framework that I just laid out that invitations were sought from local organizations. This was done, in fact, after the town received this year 50 invitational entries from the Boston Athletic Association. So again, there's a policy that lays out the framework for distributing these numbers every year. And each year the board decides who the recipients should be. And in this current year, the board decided that applications could be received from town departments as well as local nonprofits. What happened after that? Today, I am pleased to report that the town received responsive department requests from the following town departments: the Hopkinton Police Department, the Hopkinton Fire Department, the Hopkinton Senior Center, the Hopkinton Public Library, the Hopkinton Marathon Committee, the Veterans Celebrations Committee, the Hopkinton Public Schools Office of the Superintendent, and the Hopkinton High School. Of these groups that I listed, we as staff deemed that the first 6 were responsive and the last 2 were non-responsive. The reason being that the Hopkinton Public Schools Office of the Superintendent does not provide marathon services beyond the use of the school property on marathon day that the Boston Athletic Association already pays for. Similarly with the Hopkinton High School. And then on the nonprofit side, we received in total 31 nonprofit organizations undertaking public service activities within and based in Hopkinton. They included the following, and this is for the public's benefit: the Hopkinton Women's Club, the Mental Health Collaborative, Inc., the Hopkinton Public Library Foundation, the Hopkinton Garden Club, the Hopkinton PTO, Live for Evan, Inc., Keep Smiling for Abby Foundation, the Michael Lisno Respite Center, the Hopkinton Girls Youth Lacrosse, the Hopkinton High School Robotics, Project Just Because, the Hopkinton Tax Relief Committee, Bay Path Humane Society, Hopkinton Boys Youth Lacrosse, Kent's Underdog Scholarship Fund, the Hopkinton Middle School, and there may be a question as to why this group is included in the nonprofits section. This is in relation to the Middle School Courtyard project. It's a project that was identified, I believe, 3 years ago with 3 distinct phases that the town agreed to fund through its nonprofit. The Dignity Matters, Inc., the National Brain Tumor Society. The last 2 organizations, whilst they may have a national component to them, they do have a local chapter here in Hopkinton. Hopkinton Public Library Friends, the Friends of the Hopkinton Seniors, the Friends of Hopkinton CPAC, the Demons Youth Hockey Association. We did confirm, I think in the last year, there were discussions as to whether this association was serving Hopkinton youth. We did confirm that they do. The Hopkinton Historical Society, the Hopkinton Lions Club, Hopkinton Education Foundation, Sophie's Hope Foundation. This is a new applicant. Hopkinton Little League, the Friends of Hopkinton Inc., the Hopkinton Emergency Fund, the 19th Annual Sharon Timlin Memorial Event to Cure ALS, and finally, the Hopkinton Music Association. Of these applicants, we as staff deemed the following 2 to be non-responsive. The Hopkinton Freedom Team, not a registered nonprofit, and the Hopkinton Food Pantry at Project Just Because. This is not an independently registered nonprofit, but is a key function of Project Just Because. Finally, given the pool of applicants received and the number of invitational entries available in town, we are proposing as staff the following 2 options. If the board agrees that there are 31 responsive nonprofit applications and 6 responsive town applications, it could distribute 1 invitational entry to each of the 31 qualifying town-based civic organizations. And then the remaining 19 to the responsive qualifying town departments as follows. The Hopkinton Police Department, the Hopkinton Police Department, 8 entries. The Hopkinton Fire Department, 1 entry. The Hopkinton Senior Center, 2 entries. The Hopkinton Public Library, 2 entries. The Hopkinton Marathon Committee, 5 entries. The Veterans Celebration Committee, 1 entry. Again, these are numbers based on the requests that were made by the respective departments or committees. Option 2, if the board is inclined to accept the 4 non-responsive applications, the following could be the way forward. First option, prioritize the 2 non-responsive nonprofit organizations and assign 1 invitational entry to each. Or hold a random draw for 2 invitational entries with all 4 non-responsive entries participating. The question is, where will these 2 invitational entries come from? In either option, the 2 invitational entries will come from the qualifying town departments, 1 each from the Senior Center and the Hopkinton Public Library. This means that the Hopkinton Senior Center and the Hopkinton Public Library will each receive 1 invitational entry only. Again, the proposal before you tonight is consistent with past practice, consistent with and complies with the town's policy, and our assessment of responsive, non-responsive is as detailed in the handout that I shared with you and as I explained in my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Paulo. I do have one question, which is with regard to the civic organizations that were
Yes.
deemed non-responsive.
Yes.
I see that one is because it's not registered as a nonprofit.
Yes, correct.
Does that, is there any restrictions on providing the entry and for them to fundraise off that entry despite not being a nonprofit?
Yeah, the the restriction comes from the fact that the town's policy for this year specifically identified that the entries will be distributed to nonprofits who provide proof that they are nonprofits. And in our conversations with the Hopkinton Freedom team, they indicated that they are in the process of applying for a nonprofit status.
Just a point of order. I looked through the application, the invitational process, and I did not see the word nonprofit mentioned anywhere. It just says organizations undertaking, let's see. Organizations undertaking public service activities within the town of Hopkinton. So if we are really intending from the outset not to award them to groups that are not nonprofits, we should really specifically say that in the announcement, because people wouldn't have known.
Okay, I'm wondering too, it may have been reflected in fact in the application form. I'll take a quick look at that. Let me take a quick look at the application form. Any other questions?
Go ahead, Muriel.
Yeah, I just have a question. Where is there are there typical organizations that for example, the Marathon Fund who gets 5 and the police department who gets 8, are there typical organizations that those flow to?
Yes, I can speak to that. And this is a tradition and culture that has developed over the years. Let me speak first to the Marathon Committee. This is the entity in town that does extensive work in preparing for a successful start of the marathon here in Hopkinton. Their work entails multiple meetings with the BAA, as well as the volunteers that make this day a wonderful experience for our runners as well as our residents. And part of its work involves liaising with different entities in town to facilitate many aspects of the race. For example, they work with Dale EMC in arranging for the additional parking to support runners as well as people attending the marathon. They also work with other local organizations that provide, again, parking or some other resources for the start of the marathon. So my understanding in talking with Dottie over the years is that the invitational entries are then distributed to those entities that support logistically the start of the marathon in Hopkinton. In terms of the police department, my understanding is that the invitational entries are shared with various local organizations or police departments that support the public safety component of the marathon, including the local association for our union associations, Westboro, Upton, Northborough police departments, and I believe even in the past, there's an entry that may have gone to the FBI. I did reach out to the chief for a list of the organizations that received these entries last year. And he's saying he sent me an email. Let me check quickly. Yeah. The HPD Association received 2, the Upton Police Station 2, Northborough Police Station 1, Westboro Police 1, Watertown Police 1, Milford Hospital 1. This was from last year.
Great, I appreciate that. Do we have the list for the Marathon Fund Committee organizations or no?
No, in fact, it's the Marathon Committee.
It's the Marathon Committee, I'm sorry.
Yes. I have had the list previously. I can check with Jody and share with the board.
It's fine. I guess it would be fun. It would be good to know in going forward, just where they're dedicated to, but I don't have any objections to the distribution. I was just curious. Just for the record, I would support an approach that does make it possible for each of the agencies, including the Freedom Team and the Food Pantry, to each get one if that works out to be possible.
Is that 50, 60? I know 51 and the 51 and 6 is 57. So if we're adding Freedom Team, Project Just Because, and the Food Pantry, that'll be 60.
So,
No,
No,
no, I believe, I think we're still, Mr. Kamal, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're sticking with the 50. We only have 50 to distribute, right?
Yeah, correct. And if we include the two nonprofits, we therefore are going to give two less to the town departments. In answer to the earlier question from Amy, the application form specifically requested verification of tax exempt status.
And did we vote on the application in November when we voted on the policy? Because it just, I think it should be very clear in the policy if we are requiring nonprofits, because people will know that in advance.
Okay, point well taken.
So I think this is a good point for, for us to kind of survey all the board members as to which options you would prefer. We've heard Mariel's. Mary Jo, do you have a preference?
I feel the same way. I feel everybody who has applied should get one, and then the extra ones we will distribute afterwards.
Okay. Mr. Tedstone?
So I like the, make the town departments whole and give everybody that fell under the parameters, those 31. So that would be 19 to the town departments, and each of those nonprofits that applied for one or more, to give them each one. But if there's a push for those for-profits or the people that aren't recognized as charities, then I feel at face value that as I look at it, it looks like the library's asking for 2-3 times, so they're asking for 6. I don't think that we would need to give the library 6. If there's somebody that's gonna lose out on it, I think it looks like the library's asking for 2-3 times, so.
Is that correct, Mr. Kamalo?
Yeah, correct. There's the library department, the library foundation, and the Friends of the Library.
Okay.
However, under the scenario, if the board is inclined to go with the first option, there will be a number for the Public Library Foundation, one for the Public Library Friends, and 2 from the department. However, if the board goes with the other alternative to recognize Project Just Because and Hopkinton Freedom Team, the library will then get 1 for the department, 1 for the foundation, and 1 for the Friends.
and the senior center would get 1 for the department and 1 for the Friends.
Correct.
So,
So I would be
Madam Bush.
inclined, I would be inclined to give 1 to each, the Freedom Team and to the Project Just Because Food Pantry. I see that someone from Project Just Because has their hand up. So when I finish, maybe we could let them weigh in on what they would be using it for. And I was curious too, the public superintendent's office and the Hopkinton High School, I know they can only apply under one method. Were they notified that they didn't qualify for that first method? Because it seems like they could have then applied as a nonprofit or organization.
Yeah, interesting question. As a nonprofit under the nonprofit category, the question then becomes services that they are providing in relation to the marathon. As we've properly identified, sorry, that is as the town department. However, as a nonprofit, the question becomes what services the superintendent's office is providing for as a public service that is not paid for by the taxpayers.
Yeah, I guess I just, not knowing the answer, it could be one of the high school classes would like to have a number so they could raise money for their class activities. I don't know. Maybe that's why the high school applied, but I don't know.
Yeah, we normally, when that has happened, the high school class has been appropriately identified.
Right? I don't think it's our job to identify what these should be or what these shouldn't be. I think that it should be pretty succinct over which charities are asking for them, why they're asking for them, and not who it might go to.
So in the application,
do
I did
agree
not
with that.
specify what the high school wanted the number for, what activities.
I can research that and let you know in a second.
Okay.
So just to complete the cycle, I want to just say that, you know, as far as what I would be inclined to do is also to recognize Project Just Because and the Freedom Team. I agree with Mr. Tedstone that, you know, as far as who is out of the town departments that's getting them, I don't think the library should be getting 6. So could we adjust it so that the Freedom Team and Project Just Because gets 1 each and reduce it from the library as opposed to the police department and the, what other, was it the library that we're saying?
Library and senior center, I believe, was what the
Library and
first
senior center?
proposal was, yeah.
Okay.
I just
So
wanted
maybe
to,
reduce one from just take them both from the library, because, well, one for the library directly, and then one from one of the other, you know, the Hopkinton Library Foundation.
Through the chair, there's also Project Just Because has another number as well.
yes,
Project Just Because has another one?
yes. And then they applied also for the food pantry, which doesn't
Okay,
have
I
its
see.
own nonprofit number.
So then it's just the Freedom Team that would be left without any if we were to go with option 1.
Do we
And
want
I would be more than happy to change my suggestion to go to the second suggestion, and instead of giving the library 6, give the library 5, give the Freedom Team 1, and go from there.
So just for the record, or through you, Mr. Chair, the library would get, everybody who has applied, so like the Friends of the Library would only get 1, not the 2 they asked for. And the library as a department would just get 1. And then there's, I'm sorry, there's another library agency, it's not in front of me.
Friends
Would
of-
also,
Foundation and the Friends?
yeah, would only also get 1, not the 2 they asked for. So they are in total potentially going to get 3. Oh, 5, 4? Wait,
No, so I think what Mr. Tedstone was just
Right.
saying is we use that we because Project Just Because is already getting 2. And the only one that's being left out is the Freedom Team. So we give them 1 and reduce 1 from the library to include the Freedom Team. Am I correct in how you're putting it, Mr. Tedstone?
Absolutely. Spot on,
And I'd be
Counselor.
supportive of that.
I would be interested in hearing from Max von Baca from Project Just Because he has his hand up, if
Sure.
others are.
Ben, can you liven him up? Max, you're up.
Hi there, folks. This is Max Fumbaka. I live at 17 West Elm Street. I'm also the operations manager over at Project Just Because. I just wanted to very, very quickly give some clarity on the sort of distinction between the application for Project Just Because as the umbrella organization that provides, you know, coats and holiday gifts and school supplies and all those other things to kids in town, from specifically the town pantry. In that, in addition to all those other services, insofar as every town has a town food pantry, several years back, Project Just Because took on the additional responsibility of managing that town pantry, which prior to that was housed in a different location, and then Project Just Because took it on. So I think for many years, with the exception of last year, there was a recognition that those two were distinct enough to warrant 2 separate applications. So that was just, I wanted to provide some clarity on that.
Thank you, Max. I appreciate that. Seeing as how, if we are looking at the food pantry as a separate entity, I think I'm okay with giving the food pantry its own entry. Board members, are we, any opposition to that approach?
That's fine with me.
Just, so where would we be taking it away from though, if we were to?
One would come from the library, and I think as proposed,
I believe I
So-
proposed, I believe I proposed that if we were going to give them to the Freedom Team and Project Just Because, that we would take them from the collective 6 applicants of the library.
right.
So then
So
that
could
would,
we-
that would remove 2 from them.
Okay, so we could remove, so we could give one to the Hopkinton Public Library, and then give one to the Hopkinton Public Library Foundation, Inc., instead of 2.
Well,
No, no, to be
Mr.
clear,
Chair,
to be clear,
I don't believe that there's anybody who's asked, with the exception of the town departments, any of those 31 nonprofits that have asked, I believe that we've already said that they're at the most going to get 1.
Right, okay, that's right, that's right. They're all getting 1, so.
Right.
So,
yeah.
instead of the library getting 4, they would get 2.
No, in fact, to be clear,
I wanted 6.
under any of the scenarios discussed, the library gets 1 for the foundation, 1 for the Friends. And if the board is already assigning one of the library department's numbers to the Freedom Team, then they're only getting 3.
Okay,
Which is still 2 more than most of the others.
most of the others.
Yeah, but realizing though, sorry, if I may, through the chair, realizing that the Friends of the Library is a different entity from the foundation, which is
Right.
also an independent entity.
Right,
I do feel that there is a great need for the services of the food pantry and Project Just Because, especially around this time. So I would like to give them that extra number if we can.
I totally agree.
I agree as well.
Me
So,
too.
So that's gonna be 3, right? The Freedom Team, PJB, and the pantry. So there's 3 individual ones going there.
No, so PJB already had 1 in the 31.
They already have one.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
so that's.
But
So
two.
this would be a second one. for
this
them.
would be a second one for the food
The
pantry.
food pantry, right.
And if I'm not,
That's good.
if I'm not missing something, we still have the Freedom Team without 1 unless we take 1 from someplace.
No, we're taking 1 from the library and giving it to the Freedom Team. And then we're
And,
taking 1 more from somewhere else to give to the food pantry at Just Because.
okay, right, so we still have to find 1 other one.
So, Mr. Kamalu, do they have? So
How
I-
about- Yes.
I guess
How
your
about-
suggestion is to take it from the senior center.
Yeah, the senior center, again, the town manager's commitment is we will work with the senior center to find other resources to support our seniors.
I like that.
And the senior
So-
center would still get 1, plus their friends of the seniors will get 1. So they would have 2.
2, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm comfortable
So
with
as
that.
it sits, so,
I'm comfortable with
so it would sit where the police department will get 8, fire department will get 1, senior center would get 1, library would get 1, marathon committee get 5, veteran celebration get 1. Those other 31 would get 1. And then the Freedom Team and the food pantry would get 1, and that's 50, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So is it premature for me to make a motion to accept like that?
I
Nope.
do not believe so at all. I think it is
Through the
entirely
chair,
appropriate.
I would like to make a motion to give the numbers as requested to the Hopkinton Police Department as 8, Hopkinton Fire Department as 1, Hopkinton Senior Center changing from the request of 2 to 1, Hopkinton Public Library to changing the request from 2 to 1, the Hopkinen Marathon Committee to get 5, the Hopkinen Celebration Committee to get 1, the 31 responsive town-based nonprofit organizations to be funded at 1 per request, and then to also give 1 number to the Hopkinen Freedom Team and 1 number to the Hopkinen Food Pantry at Project Just Because.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Any discussion?
I guess I would like to know, just for, not necessarily tonight, but for future reference, what the superintendent's office and what the high school had requested them for, just because I want to make sure.
I
Yeah.
have the answer to that. Vasuda has looked at the application. They did not specify.
They didn't specify. Okay.
Yeah.
So that'll
Um,
be a lesson learned for them for next year.
Yeah, just to get it correct too. Whatever the BAA is using, they pay the school, right?
Correct.
School gets a stipend for everything the BAA uses having to do with the school?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Great. Anything else?
No, I just want to say how, what a great problem this is to have. This is amazing for all of these organizations. Really appreciate the partnership with the BAA in this. It's, we're very fortunate, and a lot of organizations are really fortunate to have this. And I wish we had an unlimited number, but of course we don't, so,
We tried, believe me, we tried.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, in
Uh,
fact, if I may, Mr. Chair, just to add to that point,
Sure.
for the public's information, knowing how difficult a year last year was, our local nonprofits were still able to raise $294,000.
Wow. Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, well, so we have a motion's been seconded. We're gonna take a roll call vote. Amy Ritterbush,
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Brendan Tedstone,
Headstone, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere,
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel Kramer,
Euro Kramer, yes.
and Irfan Nasrullah is a yes. Yay. So that's all set.
Good.
We have no other items on the agenda, so,
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second,
all right, we have a motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
See you
roll
next
call
week.
vote. All right, roll call vote. Amy Ritterbush,
Amy Ritterbush, yes.
Brendan Tedstone,
Headstone, yes.
Mary Jo Lafreniere,
Mary Jo Lafreniere, yes.
Muriel Kramer,
Euro Kramer's a yes.
and Irfan Nasrullah is a yes as well. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night, good night.
See you soon.